I must have done something truly awful in a past life to deserve this. The moment my boyfriend's white moonlight returned to the country, I was dumped. And to add insult to injury, I received the news directly from the white moonlight herself. Just as I was about to concede defeat, my aloof and formidable boss suddenly materialized, his expression a mixture of exasperation and something I couldn't quite decipher. Looking for a way to get back at him, he drawled, his gaze intense. "How about this? I give you an opportunity. Let's pretend to date." My boyfriend's white moonlight was back. I hit send, dispatching the research report to my supervisor, just as the clock signaled the end of the workday. This month had been relentlessly demanding. My period had arrived early, a brutal, throbbing ache. Deep in my lower abdomen, each pulse a hammer blow. My back protested with every step as I shuffled towards the break room, collapsing onto a tea-colored sofa chair. I pulled out my phone, dialing Ethan's number. Strange. It rang and rang, unanswered, even after the third attempt. What was going on? Ethan always picked up my calls immediately. He was usually at my beck and call, ready to drop everything. Could something be wrong? Just then, a dainty clutch bag landed with a soft thud on the table in front of me. The bag's owner, adorned in an indigo bohemian maxi dress, with cascading waves of dark hair, fixed me with a disdainful gaze, her eyes raking over me from head to toe. "You must be Serafina. Ethan's girlfriend? Honestly, I can't fathom what Ethan sees in someone like you." She didn't need to introduce herself. I recognized her instantly. Ethan's white moonlight, his first love, Isabel. Back in university, Ethan had been utterly besotted with this ex-girlfriend, a fact that was common knowledge and a constant thorn in my side. I raised my eyelids slowly, meeting her gaze evenly. So she was the white moonlight? Big deal. The word ex preceded that title. Past tense. For years ago, Isabel had chosen to study abroad, leaving Ethan behind. Now, she was trying to rekindle an old flame? Too late. Ethan was my boyfriend now. "Miss Serafina," Isabel continued, her tone light, almost dismissive, "I'm here to inform you that Ethan has broken up with you. Please, don't bother him anymore." Her words were delivered with an airy nonchalance, but they detonated inside me like a silent bomb. Ethan had been in contact with his ex? When? The harsh fluorescent lights of the break room cast stark shadows, my own silhouette stretching long and distorted against the marble wall. I stared at it, feeling utterly isolated and adrift. Then, I heard my own voice, strained and unfamiliar, echoing from what felt like a great distance. "I don't believe you. Miss Isabel, this isn't some kind of joke, is it?" But a small, insidious voice whispered in the back of my mind, "Isabel isn't joking. Ethan always loved her more." I knew Ethan's affection for Isabel was a deep, entrenched thing, a fact I was intimately familiar with. 3 months into our relationship, Ethan had left his QQ account logged in on my computer. Curiosity, or perhaps a touch of insecurity, led me to his linked accounts, and I stumbled upon a hidden QQ profile. Within it, he had meticulously documented every precious moment he'd shared with his ex-girlfriend. He'd called Isabel "piggy wife," posting photos of himself taking her pictures, cooking for her, even tying her shoelaces. In the comments section, Ethan had written a fervent, saccharine declaration. "Piggy wife, I'm so incredibly lucky to be your other half. I'll be there with you, always and forever. Love, your big boy." Those words were like pulling back a corner of a curtain, revealing a different Ethan, a childish, clingy, and deeply devoted Ethan. Men become children in front of the women they truly love, the saying went. It wasn't that Ethan didn't like me. It was that compared to that fervent, almost obsessive affection, his feelings for me felt placid, almost formulaic. When I confronted Ethan about the hidden account, he'd responded with a mixture of wistfulness and regret, a faint sadness clouding his eyes. Those posts. I thought I'd deleted them all. And now, the woman who had inspired those hidden declarations was standing right in front of me. An old adage flashed through my mind, when the ex cries, the current one loses. Isabel hadn't even shed a tear, and I, the current girlfriend, had already lost. "Miss Serafina, I assure you, this is no joke. If you don't believe me, call Ethan yourself." "Oh, wait, he probably isn't answering your calls anymore, is he?" Isabel chuckled lightly, pulling out her phone and dialing Ethan's number. How had things unraveled so quickly? Just last night, Ethan had brought me my favorite Black Forest cake, wrapping his arms around me from behind, resting his chin gently on my shoulder. And now, barely a day later, he was back with Isabel? Isabel put the call on speaker. Ethan's voice, soft and tender, filled the air. I heard him murmur, "Piggy wife?" In that instant, defeat washed over me completely. The pain was like a physical tearing, a brutal wrenching at my heart. Had the past 3 years been a complete waste? Out of that raw pain, a surge of betrayed anger began to rise. Ethan, it's Sarah. You need to explain this to me. When did you get back together with her? I'm your girlfriend, aren't I? Sarah? Is that you? Listen, let me explain. Ethan's usually gentle tone wavered, laced with a hint of panic. The more the anger blazed, the clearer my mind became. Answer my question, Ethan. Isabel says you've broken up with me. Is that true? A heavy, damning silence hung in the air. Isabel's lips curved into a smug, victorious smile. Ethan's silence seared me. It spoke volumes. Ethan was cheating. And I'd been completely oblivious, blissfully unaware until Isabel had marched in to deliver the coup de grace. I snatched Isabel's phone, fury erupting. Ethan, if you've chosen Isabel, then congratulations on your reunion. As far as I'm concerned, love isn't about who came first, it's about fair competition. Maybe Isabel's return meant she won. You choosing her, I have no complaints. What I am furious about is that you were two-timing me, stringing me along while you were with someone else. That's disgusting. Having unleashed my tirade, I had no desire to hear Ethan's pathetic excuses. I hung up abruptly, the click echoing in the sudden silence. Isabel scrutinized me, her voice dripping with disdain. You actually work here? One would think HRBP standards have plummeted if they hired you. Her tone was laced with pity, perfectly complimenting her flawless appearance and elegant demeanor. She even managed to be condescending. With grace and confidence. In comparison, I felt like a complete country bumpkin. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Just then, a clear, composed female voice cut through the air. Excuse me, madam, this is a break room for company employees only. We kindly request that unauthorized personnel vacate the premises and refrain from monopolizing company resources. It was Helen, the assistant to the senior executive, Declan Regulus. Under Helen's polite but steely gaze, Isabel had no choice but to leave. Helen, thank you. Coffee's on me tomorrow, I mumbled, clutching my aching abdomen as I stood up, offering a weak smile of gratitude to Helen. Frankly, I was surprised. Helen was notorious in the office for her aloofness, dedicated solely to managing Mr. Regulus's affairs. Why had she intervened on my behalf? Helen offered a perfunctory, professional smile. No need to thank me. This was Mr. Regulus's directive. Following Helen's subtle glance, I shifted my gaze slightly to my right. A tall, imposing figure stood by the coffee bar, a navy blue tie knotted at his throat, his dark eyes, shadowed by his brow ridge, fixed intently on me. Declan Regulus. The company's youngest senior executive. 2 years ago, a brilliant merger and acquisition deal had catapulted him into the upper echelons of management. Meeting his intense, inscrutable gaze, my heart skipped a beat. Declan Regulus strode over, a brief nod dismissing Helen, who retreated quickly. What was going on? Declan Regulus, a man swamped with responsibilities, was actually concerning himself with a lowly employee like me? Was he going to reprimand me for leaving work early? Declan Regulus was infamous in the company, nicknamed Black-Faced Yama, the King of Hell. He was notoriously strict with his subordinates. My colleagues in the same office area often grumbled about his impossibly high standards for research reports, though their complaints were often tinged with a strange mix of resentment and pride. After all, not everyone had the opportunity to work directly with Declan Regulus. Strict as he was, his competence was undeniable, and the benefits he offered his team were equally generous. Thank you, Mr. Regulus, I said sincerely. Declan Regulus stopped at the table opposite mine. He towered over me, a full head taller. In my thin-soled flats, I barely reached his shoulder. I had to crane my neck to look up at him. Call me Declan, he said softly, his eyes again drifting downwards, settling on my hand pressed against my lower abdomen. Are you unwell? Declan Regulus reached out, his hand hovering near my arm, a silent offer of support. I could no longer hold myself up, I slumped back onto the sofa, gasping for breath, cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. In a swift movement, Declan Regulus walked to the water dispenser. When he returned, he held a cup of hot water. His Rolex submariner, the Hulk, looked strangely incongruous, clutched around a disposable paper cup. "Drink this. It'll help with the pain in a bit," his normally sharp, commanding voice softened, tinged with a surprising gentleness. "Kindness from the black-faced Yama? A truly rare occurrence." "Thank you, Declan," I said, taking the cup, swallowing a painkiller, and gulping down the hot water. "Work is important, of course, but you need to take care of yourself." As he spoke, Declan's gaze, following the line of the glass coffee table, drifted slowly down towards my lower abdomen. It was a gaze that, despite its usual coldness, felt warm. It sent a strange shiver through me, a prickling sensation across my scalp, as if my entire body was suddenly flushed with heat. My cheeks burned. "Is he being a little forward?" I wondered, shifting uncomfortably, wanting to turn away from his intense scrutiny. Whatever his intentions, even if it was just concern. This kind of attention, this kind of gaze, still felt too much. Too intimate. Perhaps sensing my discomfort, Declan Regulus cleared his throat, turning slightly and signaling to the waiter for a coffee. Gathering my wits, I pulled out my phone, contacting my best friend, Maya. "Maya, I broke up with Ethan. Is it okay if I crash at your place for a while? Is that convenient?" "Convenient? Don't be ridiculous, just come over." "Sarah, what happened? You're dropping a bomb out of nowhere." "It's complicated. I'll tell you everything later." Having secured Maya's approval, I started looking up moving companies to help me relocate. Ethan and I had lived together for a year, and I had accumulated quite a bit of stuff. I didn't want to throw away anything that was still usable. "Looking for a moving company?" "I'm free tonight, I could help you move," Declan Regulus said, looking up from his coffee. I nearly choked on the sip of water I'd just taken. I'd almost forgotten he was even there. Was he just being polite? Projecting a benevolent boss image? A senior executive's polite offer, how could I possibly take it seriously? "Thank you so much, but please, don't trouble yourself. I can manage on my own." Declan Regulus's time was incredibly valuable, every minute worth a fortune. I couldn't possibly impose on him like that. Upon hearing my refusal, Declan's expression darkened noticeably. He said, almost to himself, "Do I seem that much older than you?" I blinked, confused. What was he getting at? No, not at all. I looked up at Declan's face. His features were sharp and defined, his jawline taut and sculpted, like naturally contoured shadows. No one in their right mind would think Declan Regulus was old. The summer interns who'd recently joined our department had been swooning over him for days. "Then, lose the Mr. Regulus and you, and just call me Declan," Declan said, a faint smile playing on his lips. I swallowed hard, bracing myself, and repeated, "Thank you, Declan, but really, don't trouble yourself. I can manage." Instead of responding, Declan rested his head on his hand, his gaze fixed on me, his voice low and resonant. "It's no trouble at all." I was completely taken aback. This was moving day. Moving boxes, clothes, kitchenware, the total value of everything probably wouldn't even amount to pocket change for Declan Regulus. Declan continued, "I'll give you 5 seconds to consider. You can accept, or you can refuse. But if you refuse..." Refuse him? Wasn't that deliberately antagonizing my boss? "Then, thank you," I conceded, feeling a strange mix of apprehension and curiosity. The Jeep Wrangler pulled up in front of my apartment building. Declan followed me upstairs. I was busy packing, barely noticing him. As I stuffed clothes into a suitcase, Declan, in his light-colored shirt, suit jacket draped over his wrist, glanced towards the balcony. I followed his gaze, to my lingerie, freshly washed from last night. 3 or 4 pieces of underwear hung high on the clothesline, a lacy bra swaying gently in the breeze. I hadn't expected such intimate details to be so blatantly visible to my boss. And even more mortifying, he was staring. Ugh. So much for him being a good Samaritan. Just then, Declan cleared his throat, his voice a low rumble. Quite playful, aren't we? My face instantly burned. Declan's eyes were fixed on me, unmasked amusement flickering at the corners of his mouth, though his eyes remained unreadable. His smile was on his lips, but not in his eyes, making it impossible to discern his true thoughts. The lurid, inappropriate thoughts that flashed through my mind made me want to retch. These things, in the right context, could be beautiful. What wasn't beautiful was the fact that the person I'd shared these moments with was, apparently, a complete jerk. I banished the image of Ethan from my mind, ignoring Declan's implications. I marched onto the balcony and with a sharp swish yanked the curtains closed. Then, grabbing a close prop, I started frantically taking down my laundry piece by piece. Only when a cool breeze swept through the open window did I regain some composure and resume packing. Moving my belongings out of the apartment felt like severing ties with Ethan, piece by piece. Despite everything, he had been the man I'd loved, the one who'd brought me those little cakes for 3 years. Seeing the plush rabbit doll Ethan had given me, the tears I'd been holding back finally welled up, and I sank into the corner of the bedroom, sobbing silently. He was a jerk, yes, but the 3 years of feelings I'd invested were real. Serafina, Declan's voice cut through my tears, if you're going to cry, do it in my car. You don't want your ex-boyfriend to come back and find you huddled here in such a pathetic state, do you? As he spoke, he extended a wad of tissues. Through blurry eyes, I looked up at him. Declan's expression was calm, the usual sharpness and critical edge softened. Anything else to move? I'll help you carry it down. Let's make this quick. I had to admit, Declan Regulus was a remarkably dedicated, moving man. Like an industrious worker ant, he diligently transported my rice cooker, air fryer, and every other item I'd brought to the apartment, loading them into the back of his Wrangler. Only one suitcase remained. Declan lifted it, heading towards the elevator. Unfortunately, this particular suitcase was an old relic from my freshman year of university, battered and worn after 7 or 8 years. The zipper chose this precise moment to give way, with a loud rip, the suitcase bursting open and spewing its contents across the elevator floor. Small, transparent plastic bags of clothing and sanitary pads tumbled out. Suddenly, Declan found himself standing amidst a chaotic sprawl of brightly colored women's underwear and feminine hygiene products. His face darkened further. I quickly bent down to gather everything, but just then, a sharp stab of pain shot through my lower abdomen. I stumbled back, collapsing against the elevator wall, my back seizing up, a warm rush flooding downwards. Looking at my reflection in the elevator mirror, I saw my face was ashen. Are you all right? Declan reached out, steadying my arm. I gritted my teeth, forcing out a strained, I'm fine, wanting to bend down and collect the scattered items. Don't move. I'll get it. Declan's voice brooked no argument. He crouched down, his muscular frame, honed by intense workouts, straining against his shirt, the outlines clearly defined. His sleeves were rolled up to his forearms, revealing tanned skin and strong, veined hands. Without a word, he started gathering my fallen belongings, stuffing them back into the broken suitcase. When his long fingers closed around the plastic bag containing my lingerie, his movements slowed perceptibly. Through the translucent plastic, the red and white lace patterns of the underwear became even more prominent. This was beyond mortifying. Mortifying with a hint of something else. The man kneeling on the floor was Declan Regulus, senior executive, my boss's boss. And he was holding a bag of my underwear. His earlier teasing comment, quite playful. Aren't we? Echoed in my mind, and my cheeks flushed uncontrollably. Looking at my reflection in the elevator mirror, I saw my face blazing like 2 fiery clouds. Ayawa. Make it stop. Why did my period have to flare up now? Why did the suitcase have to break now? Declan finished gathering everything, hauling the broken suitcase to his feet. He stood up, positioning himself strategically, barely an arm's length away. He lowered his head slightly, looking down at me, a hint of a smile playing around his dark eyes, a faint crescent moon of a smile crinkling the skin beneath his eyes, adding a touch of human warmth to his usual austere demeanor. Why are your cheeks so red? His voice was low, almost a murmur. It's just the heat. Things fell out, sorry you had to see that, I stammered, trying to mask my embarrassment, keeping my expression carefully neutral. Hearing my words, the smile faded from Declan's face. Let's go. Any longer and your ex-boyfriend might actually show up. I followed Declan out of the elevator. As the car door slammed shut, the Wrangler sped off towards Maya's apartment in the Riverside district. About half an hour later, my phone buzzed again. It was Ethan calling. Sarah, you've moved everything out already? And left the keys here? Ethan's voice was laced with disbelief. Are you just abandoning me like this? Ethan, get your facts straight. I'm not your girlfriend anymore. If you have any issues, take it up with Isabel. Sarah, honestly, I'm still confused. I bought you a cake, waiting for you to come back and eat it. Just stop, Ethan. There's no point in saying any of this now. What was he hoping to achieve? Reconcile with Isabel and then come crawling back to me? Sarah, please, don't hang up. Where are you right now? I'll come find you. Just wait for me. I took a deep breath, ready to unleash a torrent of angry words, but before I could speak, Declan reached out a large hand and snatched my phone away. The deal is done. No takebacks. Don't call Serafina again, Declan stated firmly, before abruptly ending the call with a decisive click. I stared at him, bewildered. Why did it feel like he was more incensed about my ex-boyfriend calling than I was? We were just boss and subordinate, weren't we? He'd just helped me move. Yet somehow, the distance between us, in the course of this chaotic evening, had subtly, inexplicably, narrowed. A man who wants to have his cake and eat it too. He's not worth it, Declan declared, delivering his verdict on my ex with finality. He pressed down hard on the accelerator, the engine roared, and the car shot forward. My abdomen throbbed again. As I instinctively touched my lower stomach, Declan suddenly reached out and adjusted the air conditioning vent on the passenger side. Still in pain? Should I get you a hot ginger tea to warm you up? No, thank you. I'll just have my friend make me some hot water when we get there. That will do. His concern, his attentiveness, felt so natural, so practiced. I couldn't help but wonder. This black-faced Yama, from afar, he seemed like an emotionless ice king, untouched by earthly desires. But up close, I was starting to realize, he was surprisingly good at this caring thing. Or was it just my imagination? The car pulled into the older apartment complex where Maya lived. The building, a relic of a bygone era, had no elevator. Clutching my stomach, I reached for my suitcase, bracing myself for the climb. Leave it, Declan insisted, I'll carry it. You're on your period, you should be resting, not hauling luggage around. Declan was adamant about carrying everything up for me. I couldn't argue with him, not really. Maya, however, watching this powerful, handsome executive lugging my belongings, raised her eyebrows at me, a knowing smirk playing on her lips. Declan carried the last of my things into Maya's apartment, even asking Maya for an old plastic water bottle. He filled it with hot water, wrapped it in a towel, and handed it to me. Here, for your stomach. Under Maya's knowing glances and suggestive winks, I awkwardly accepted the hot water bottle, placing it on my lower abdomen. The warmth was instantly soothing. Thank you, Declan. I'll definitely work hard for you back at the office, I said sincerely. After a night of exertion, Declan was lightly perspiring, his pale shirt clinging to his chest, leaving faint damp patches. I caught a subtle scent of cedarwood from him, mingling with a hint of salty sweat, a potent cocktail of masculine energy. No need for working hard for me, Declan replied, his expression unwavering. Just treat me to dinner. Suddenly, I found myself thinking that my formidable boss was actually rather endearing. Even his request for dinner sounded more like a command than a suggestion. No problem, anywhere you want to go. My treat, I agreed, secretly planning to invite Helen along too, to make it less date-like. Once everything was settled, Declan steered his Wrangler out of the complex. Sarah, that was fast. Maya exclaimed, watching the Jeep disappear down the street, astonishment written all over her face. What's fast? I asked, confused. Your new thing? That was quick. He seems really nice, and definitely a major upgrade from Ethan. Ethan was like, well, you know. Maya, having heard the full, unvarnished story of my breakup, was thoroughly unimpressed with my ex. I had to concede, Ethan was pretty awful. But Maya was jumping to conclusions. Declan was my boss, a high-powered executive. He wouldn't be interested in someone like me, a small cog in the corporate machine. He'd just been being helpful, because I was clearly distressed and vulnerable. Helping a subordinate was probably good PR, and ensured I'd be even more compliant at work tomorrow. No, Maya, you've got it all wrong. You think I'm so pathetic that I'd fall for someone just because they dumped me? Look, he's the boss. He was just being nice, helping out a poor employee in need. Tomorrow, he'll probably work me even harder to make up for it. Sarah, are you serious? Are you that beaten down by that? Look at you. You're gorgeous, you're brilliant at your job. It's not exactly shocking that a powerful guy might be interested. Seriously, he helped you move, drove you here, made sure you were okay. That's not just being nice, honey. Gorgeous? Me? Maya was definitely seeing me through rose-tinted, best friend glasses. Oh, please. Sarah, you're being ridiculous. Beautiful and clueless? That's practically Versailles-level bragging. Maya shoved her compact mirror in my face. The woman staring back at me, ponytail slightly disheveled. Still in my drab office clothes, did have a spark of intelligence and spirit in her eyes. Okay, maybe I wasn't hideously ugly. But then I pictured Isabel, all flowing indigo silk and cascading waves, radiating confidence, and I deflated like a punctured balloon. Seriously. Isabel is nothing on you. She's a pretty face, and not even as pretty as yours. Okay, Sarah, you're a pretty face with brains. You've been reading too many CEO romance novels. Real life isn't like that. Let's just be realistic. Focus on myself, my own life. I tapped Maya playfully on the head as I spoke. Hold on. Look at this. Maya, phone still in hand, was still digging, relentlessly gossiping. Declan Regulus. He went to the same university as you. He's even your senior. Maya's voice was triumphant. I leaned closer, peering at her phone. Declan's profile was there on Baidu, crystal clear. I'd always assumed Declan came from a privileged background. But it turned out he'd come from a small, ordinary town, clawing his way to a top university on his own merit. His exceptional programming skills had then landed him a full scholarship to a prestigious Ivy League university. After graduating, he'd been headhunted by our company as a special talent, and his rapid ascent to management in under 2 years was testament to his sheer ability. In a way, we were from similar worlds. Isabel's dismissive attitude flashed through my mind again. Her effortless air of superiority was largely rooted in her privileged background. But just because Isabel had a head start, didn't mean I couldn't achieve just as much, through sheer grit and determination. A surge of resolve coursed through me. I pulled my business English textbook from my bag, flipping it open, and began to read, word by word. I'd naively thought that by moving out of Ethan's apartment, deleting his contacts, Isabel and Ethan would simply fade from my life, becoming irrelevant ghosts of the past. How wrong I was. The very next month, Isabel joined our company through the autumn recruitment drive. And to my utter dismay, she became my colleague, in the same business line. One evening, leaving work, I spotted a familiar figure near the company entrance. Ethan. My heart lurched. Holding my breath, I tried to slip out through another exit, but as if he had eyes in the back of his head, Ethan spun around, calling out to me. Serafina. Sarah. A month had aged him. He looked gaunt, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes. But his haggard appearance was hardly my concern anymore. I ignored him, quickening my pace towards the other side of the building. Serafina, I regret it. I shouldn't have broken up with you. Breaking up was a mistake. Isabel pressured me, I wasn't thinking clearly at the time. You know, I've been thinking about you nonstop for the past month, Ethan called after me, his voice catching in his throat. I'm so used to you being around. I'm more comfortable, more myself, when I'm with you. My patience snapped. I whirled around, facing him, meeting his gaze directly. If I'm not mistaken, you're here to pick up Isabel from work, right? What do you think she'd say if she heard you saying all this? And besides, Ethan, I gave you chances. So many chances. But you didn't take them. Now, you've held someone else's hand. Don't expect to come crawling back. Then give me another chance, please? Just one more chance? Ethan rushed forward, blocking my path. He cornered me against the wall, trapping me. Ethan's tall frame loomed over me, a stark reminder of the physical disparity between men and women. If he wanted to force me, I'd be powerless to escape. Serafina. Another voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the air. Declan strode towards us, even taller and more imposing than Ethan. Dressed in a light shirt and black suit, his presence radiated authority, instantly dwarfing Ethan into a meek shadow. Under Declan's intimidating gaze, Ethan instinctively backed away, allowing me to slip out of the corner. Declan stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body, his eyes like a hawk fixed on Ethan. You better not let me see you harassing Sarah again. Or we'll settle this like men, with our fists. Ethan's eyes widened, disbelief etched across his face as he looked at me. Sarah, is this your boyfriend? I wasn't going to waste my breath arguing with Ethan. I remained silent, offering no explanation. A flicker of hurt crossed Ethan's features. Sarah, I didn't expect you to find someone else so quickly. His presumptuous surprise and hurt stung. I couldn't resist a sharp retort. You went back to your white moonlight. I'm single now. I have every right to think about my future, my marriage prospects. What's wrong with that? I gave a dismissive laugh, pointedly moving closer to Declan. Click, 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 the sharp sound of high heels approaching. Isabel. Wearing a flamboyant bohemian red dress, of course. Isabel dramatically looped her arm through Ethan's, her expression turning icy as she addressed me. Miss Jeong, please stop bothering my boyfriend. A surge of indignation flared within me. Seriously? Isabel had that much confidence? Her boyfriend was a spineless, indecisive man, wavering between us. Did she really think I was desperate enough to fight her for him? Why did she assume I was the one bothering her boyfriend? It was clearly the other way around. Madam, get your facts straight. Your boyfriend is the one harassing my girlfriend. Perhaps you should control your own man and stop him from cornering other women. Declan's arm snaked around my waist, pulling me firmly against him. Suddenly, I was enveloped in his cedarwood scent, the warmth of his body radiating through me. My face flushed instantly, burning hot. I'd been held by Ethan countless times, but never had I felt this electric jolt, this dizzying sensation. In the midst of this ridiculous confrontation, I found myself momentarily speechless, captivated by the sheer intensity of the moment. Across from us, Isabel's surprise flashed across her face, quickly masked by a saccharine smile. Declan. You mean, Miss Jeong is your girlfriend? Yes, Declan stated without hesitation, his arm tightening around my waist. Right, well, apologies for disturbing you both. We'll be going now. Goodbye. Isabel's lips curled into a disdainful smirk, as if to say, even a senior executive can have terrible taste. She linked arms with Ethan, pulling him away, towards the exit. Ethan looked dazed, bewildered, allowing himself to be led away by Isabel. Once they were out of sight, I quickly disentangled myself from Declan's embrace, my cheeks still burning. Thank you. But you didn't have to do that. Now, everyone in the company is going to think I'm your girlfriend. Think? Declan's gaze roamed over my face, lingering on my flushed cheeks, a playful glint in his eyes. Let's turn think into is. Serafina, be with me. What do you say? I took a step back, slightly dazed. Could it be true? Was Maya right? Had the domineering CEO actually fallen for me? The last rays of the setting sun cast long shadows, and I felt a little lightheaded. But reality quickly reasserted itself. Declan Regulus. He was practically royalty in our company, a senior executive with significant shares. And me? Just a junior employee who'd barely been there a year. If he was interested in me, it was probably just a fling, right? I chose my words carefully. Mr. Declan, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm looking for a serious relationship, something long-term, with marriage as the goal. And honestly, being single is great. I just want to focus on my career right now. Declan actually chuckled at my response. He rarely laughed. At work, he was all business, serious and intense. But when he did laugh, it was a low, rumbling sound, softening his sharp, sculpted features, giving him an unexpected warmth. Serafina, who told you I wasn't looking for a serious, long-term relationship? Did you really think I just wanted a fling? I rolled my eyes. Yes. That was exactly what I thought. Get in the car, Declan said, tossing his keys in the air, heading towards his Wrangler. I followed, feeling a bit like I was being swept along by a force of nature. In the car, my head was still spinning. Wait, a domineering CEO actually wants to date me? Boss. Declan, he corrected automatically. Ahem. Declan, I don't think we're compatible. Why not? I think we're perfectly compatible. Our economic status, our professional standing, it's not really balanced. Unbalanced? Serafina, you seriously underestimate yourself. Stop putting yourself down. Declan glanced at me, a hint of annoyance in his voice. You got into a top university entirely on your own merit, landed a job offer at this company. My clients have been very impressed with you. Really? I'd said it half jokingly, half seriously. I hadn't expected him to answer so earnestly, or to praise me so directly. He was notoriously stingy with praise at work, earning himself the King of Hell nickname. Do I strike you as someone who'd lie? Declan shot me another look. I quickly shook my head. Declan reached into his pocket, pulling out a small black velvet pouch, pressing it into my hand. Open it. When I hesitated, he opened it himself, then the box inside. A Patek Philippe 20-4 ladies' watch gleamed in the dim light. Here, take it. I've been wanting to give you this for a while. The size is just right for your wrist. Declan took the heavy watch from the box, placing it in my palm. He'd been planning this? His warm hand brushed against mine, his calloused fingers sending a shiver up my arm. The watch, prepared in advance, made it clear, his proposal wasn't impulsive. It was premeditated. Declan looked directly into my eyes, as if trying to see into my soul. I'll give you a month to decide whether you want to be with me or not. And if I haven't decided after a month? Then I'll give you another month. Until you say yes. I couldn't argue any further. The watch was tucked into my handbag, feeling heavy and significant. I carried it home like a precious secret. Maya, with her uncanny intuition, pounced on me the moment I walked in. Sarah, I knew something was up. Spill. Why are you so late? Cheeks are flushed? Clutching your bag like it's Fort Knox? Oh, I know. The big boss took you out, didn't he? Did Maya have titanium-plated eyes? How did she see through me so easily? Seeing my silence, Maya's conviction solidified. TSK, I told you, the big boss is totally into you. How can you tell? If he wasn't interested, would he have bothered moving all your stuff? And arranging everything so neatly? Seriously, Sarah, this guy's a keeper. Just go for it. He appreciates you. I saw it in his eyes, that genuine admiration. Maya was getting carried away. I ignored her, opening my business English textbook again, burying myself in vocabulary. Men? Please. Nothing was as alluring as professional success. Our company was currently vying for a major contract with a foreign client. My direct supervisor, Alice, had urged me to seize the opportunity, prepare thoroughly, and present our products to the client. I'd thrown myself into preparations for a week, working with fierce determination. Then, Alice summoned me to her office, her expression strained and apologetic. Joanna, she began, using my English name, I have to say, this product line wouldn't be where it is without your leadership. However, there's been a change in direction. You know, you don't have a degree in English, and your degrees are all from mainland China. There are concerns about your English communication skills. To secure this client, we've decided to have Olivia, our new hire, take over client liaison. Olivia. Isabel. Alice's words washed over me, a jumbled, indistinct blur. My mind went blank, the room swam before my eyes. After what felt like an eternity, I heard my own voice, distant and hollow. No problem. I understand. I'll follow the company's arrangements. I stumbled back to my workstation, numb. I'd poured my heart and soul into this product line for a year. It was my creation. Like nurturing a sapling, watching it grow, and just as it was about to bear fruit. Because I didn't have a fancy English degree, my spoken English wasn't polished enough, I was being denied the chance to reap the harvest. On the way to the restroom, I overheard two colleagues whispering. "Hey, did you hear? Olivia's taking over the client project?" Of course. Joanna didn't study abroad. Her English probably sounds so local. Imagine scaring off a major client with that accent. A ripple of laughter followed their words. I stood frozen behind the restroom door, listening to their casual cruelty, a bitter smile twisting my lips. Was it true? No matter how hard I worked, simply because I came from an ordinary background, hadn't had the privilege of studying abroad, I was being denied this crucial opportunity? This was the reality of the corporate world. Not about fairness, just about maximizing profit. The day after Alice's conversation with me, the company held a meeting regarding the client project. I sat on the edge of the conference table, head bowed. From my peripheral vision, I could see Isabel. She was wearing a perfectly tailored cheongsam, a graceful smile fixed on her face. No, I disagree. This product line wouldn't exist without Joanna's hard work. The client has a very positive impression of Joanna. Joanna should be the one leading client communication. Otherwise, I object. Just as Alice announced Isabel would be leading the client interaction, Declan's voice boomed through the room, a clear and unwavering objection. His resonant voice filled the conference room, and I snapped my head up, staring at him from my corner. Declan's pale shirt sleeves were rolled up to his elbows, the top button of his shirt fastened, creating an aura of restrained power. He was the epitome of the aloof, untouchable CEO from every romance novel. And this untouchable CEO was standing up for me. Mr. Hu, sitting opposite Declan, chuckled dryly. Declan, we need to consider the company's best interests. The situation is clear. Ms. Isabel here. She's a returnee from overseas, a Haigue. We've all seen her English proficiency. But Ms. Jiang, well, she studied domestically. Her spoken English needs improvement. Mr. Hu, a balding, middle-aged man with a pronounced paunch, was Declan's peer, and their professional relationship was notoriously frosty. Needs improvement? Declan scoffed. Mr. Who says someone educated domestically can't speak excellent English? Or can't handle international clients? Instead of arguing in circles, why not let Joanna and Olivia compete? Let the best candidate win. Besides, Olivia is new to the company, still needs to familiarize herself with our operations. Are you so confident, Mr. Hu, that Olivia is guaranteed to outperform Joanna? At this point, everyone in the meeting could see the battle lines. Declan was clearly protecting me, while Mr. Hu was backing Isabel. Alright, enough arguing. Let's do as Declan suggests. In a week, Joanna and Olivia will do a rehearsal presentation. Whoever performs better, gets the role. Meeting adjourned. Mr. Lin, senior to both Declan and Mr. Hu, made the final call. A competition between Isabel and me in a week? I wasn't sure I could win. After work, I was about to slink off to catch a taxi back to Maya's, when Declan's hand clamped down on my arm. Serafina, I need to talk to you. Yes, Mr. Regulus? Serafina, what's wrong with you? Why do you have so little faith in yourself? I lowered my head, a sudden lump forming in my throat. Isabel's condescending words still echoed in my ears, along with my colleagues' mocking laughter. I'd never been in an all-English environment. What if I completely messed up? Declan, thank you for your support. But I've never studied abroad, never been immersed in an English-speaking environment. I'm worried I won't be good enough. Perhaps sensing the insecurity behind my words, Declan's expression softened. He reached out, placing his hands on my shoulders, as if trying to transmit his own strength to me. I have complete faith in you. A year ago, when Alice put you in charge of this project, not many people in senior management believed it would succeed. But look at it now. It's thriving. And it's been incredibly successful. If we're choosing someone to lead client communication, it has to be you. This product line is your creation. I don't agree with you handing over your hard work to someone else. That Olivia Is she really better than you? In my opinion, she's just a newbie who's good at playing politics and sucking up to the right people. I've seen plenty like her. Declan made no attempt to hide his disdain for Isabel. Giving up your own hard work is also undermining the principles of fair competition in the workplace. Professionally and personally, I insist you don't do this. If you're scared, don't be. I'm here for you. I'll help you. Okay, I agreed, my voice barely a whisper. If only to repay Declan's unwavering belief in me, I had to try. I had to fight for this. Declan was true to his word. For the next week, he sacrificed 2 hours of sleep every night, spending the time in his office, coaching me one-on-one in business English. Declan's English was impeccable, his command of idioms effortless. Between practice sessions, Declan would share snippets of his life as a student at Penn. Can you imagine? My first semester at Penn, my English was atrocious. My professor literally couldn't understand a word I said. But the more he couldn't understand, the more questions I asked him. The more I talked, the better my English got. When he recounted how he'd stumbled into computer programming and algorithms, Declan leaned back against his desk, arms crossed, his striking phoenix eyes gazing out the window, reflecting the city lights. You probably wouldn't believe it, but before university, I'd never even touched a mouse or keyboard. Then, there was this huge buzz about computer science. I'd wake up before dawn, grab a quick breakfast, and rush to the library to snag a computer. I started grinding away at LeetCode, coding all day long, every day. Eventually, even the security guard at the library started recognizing me. As he shared his stories, I listened intently. Through his words, I could almost see a brilliant young man from a small town, relentlessly working to bridge the gap between himself and his more privileged peers during his 4 years of undergraduate study and 3 years of graduate school. I imagined a 20-year-old Declan, clutching a steamed bun in one hand, a textbook in the other, racing towards the library. These small glimpses into his past deepened my feelings for him. I realized we were alike. Driven, ambitious, always striving upwards, never ceasing to grow. With Declan as my personal, top-tier coach, my business English improved exponentially. During that week, Isabel and I crossed paths several times. She never even deigned to acknowledge my existence. Until the day before the rehearsal, I bumped into her again in the restroom. Serafina, your desperate struggle is both pathetic and admirable. But you need to understand, victory will be mine. You've never even left the country. What makes you think you can compete with me? Look at Ethan. You dated him for 3 years, and the moment I reappeared, you lost, completely and utterly. Lost, completely and utterly? Not necessarily. I was starting to understand why Ethan had said he felt more comfortable with me after we broke up. Ultimately, Isabel was arrogant and conceited. Being around her for too long, you'd inevitably feel the prick of her sharp, thorny personality, leaving you constantly on edge. In the past, her insults might have made me feel inferior. But now, recalling Declan's encouraging words, I felt calm, composed, and confident. Miss Isabel, you're worrying unnecessarily. The results will speak for themselves tomorrow. No need for petty talk here. With that, I left the restroom, not wanting to waste another word on her, leaving her fuming in silence. Rehearsal complete. Olivia's English is certainly more fluent and idiomatic, but her use of specialized terminology is somewhat clumsy. The frequent pauses also reveal a lack of familiarity with the product line. Joanna's English, while carrying a slight accent, highlights the selling points and key features effectively, demonstrating a deep understanding of the business. And it's clear she's put in a significant amount of effort. I declare Joanna, Jiang Serafina, the winner, and the person chosen to lead client communication. Mr. Lin's announcement was met with applause. I stood up amidst the clapping, offering a slight bow to everyone. But in my heart, I knew there was only one person I truly needed to thank, Declan. Only he, from beginning to end, had believed in my ability, encouraged me, and supported me. My gaze briefly swept over Isabel. A forced smile plastered on her face, but it looked more like a grimace. Isabel had lost to herself. She'd lost because of her arrogance, her underestimation of me, her assumption that she could rely on currying favor with Mr. Who to snatch a victory that someone else had worked so hard to cultivate. And I, through this competition, had finally emerged from the shadows of my own self-doubt. So what if I was local? A hard-working local could still crush a high GPA and shine brightly. As soon as the workday ended, Declan practically sprinted to my workstation, urging me to leave. "What's this, Mr. Regulus, not grinding today?" I teased him. "There's plenty of time for grinding later. Right now, I have something far more important to do." "And what might that be?" "Get in the car. You'll see." The moment the car door closed, Declan turned to me, pulling me close, and kissing me deeply, passionately. His kiss was possessive, his tongue tangling with mine, refusing to let go. My eyes fluttered shut, my heart hammering against my ribs, every nerve ending tingling. Declan possessed a certain kind of magnetism, a raw, undeniable power. Proud as I was, I couldn't help but be captivated, completely surrendered to him. "Sarah, you have no idea how captivating you were on that stage today. So confident, so articulate. And I have to tell you, I regret something," Declan murmured against my ear, his voice husky, after finally breaking the kiss, leaving me breathless. "Regret what?" "I regret giving you a month to decide. Say yes to me. Now. Right now. Be my girlfriend. And when the time is right, we're getting married. And this watch," he took my hand, slipping the Patek Philippe onto my wrist. "Once it's on, it stays on." I cupped Declan's face in my hands, truly looking at him for the first time. The narrow, intense eyes, the strong, straight nose, the sharp, sensual lips, the strong jawline. This was my man. I knew it, deep down. I was all in. "Declan Regulus," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "I say yes." I said yes. Because I knew, we were the same. Declan was intense. Seriously intense. Beyond intense. He drove straight to his apartment building, no arguments allowed. Upstairs, the door slammed shut with a resounding thud. He pinned me against the cool surface of the door, his lips crashing down on mine again. I leaned back against the cold metal, feeling the tremor run through me as his fingers traced the curve of my waist. "So," Declan murmured, his voice thick with desire, his eyes locking onto mine, a teasing smile playing on his lips. "Today's. What color?" I caught the suggestive glance he threw towards my chest, and the memory of that mortifying suitcase incident from months ago flashed through my mind. This man, he was referring to my underwear color, wasn't he? A pervert. A complete and utter pervert. I twisted away from him, slipping through his grasp like an eel. "Declan Regulus, tell me the truth. Are you just after me for my beauty?" Declan raised an eyebrow, his voice dropping to a low, husky whisper, brimming with desire. "For you, Serafina? I'm after everything."